Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It is good to be here.
We are doing something a little different today. Usually, when we talk about, classics or these rigorous ethical systems, our minds, and let's be honest, the university curriculums, they tend to drift toward the Mediterranean.
Right, towards Greece and Rome.
Exactly. We think of men in togas debating the nature of virtue in the sun-drenched agoras of Athens, or maybe some stern Enlightenment thinkers in powdered wigs sitting in European coffee houses.
The Western canon, basically. That's the default.
It is the default.
Yeah.
But today, we are cracking open a text that really challenges the very geography of where philosophy happens. We are doing a deep dive into what is often called the Classic of the Sioux, a book titled Old Indian Days.
And this is a massive pivot. I mean, not just geographically, but conceptually. We are looking at a text by Charles A. Eastman, whose Sioux name was Ohae-sa.
Ohae-sa.
And to really grasp the weight of this book, you have to understand who he was. Ohae-sa isn't just an observer writing some kind of, anthropological report from the outside.
Not at all.
He is a bridge. A living, breathing bridge between two completely distinct epochs of human history. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
No, his biography reads like it has to be fiction. It's almost unbelievable.
It really does. He was raised in the traditional nomadic life of the Santee Sioux. We're talking the mid-19th century. He lived what we would technically call a Neolithic existence.
Meaning hunting with bows, living in skin lodges.
Exactly. Migrating with the seasons, following the buffalo, the whole way of life. And then through the series of wild, almost traumatic events, he was just thrust into the modern industrial world.
I mean, completely plunged into it.
He learned English, he went to prep school, then college, and eventually graduated as a medical doctor from Boston University.
So he literally have the lived experience of the teepee and the intellectual training of the medical clinic. He can diagnose a patient in Latin, but he could also, track a deer through a blizzard.
He is fluent in both worlds, and more importantly, he is fluent in the values of both worlds. That dual identity is what makes Old Indian Days so powerful, so unique.
And when was this written?
It was published in 1907. So you have to imagine Ohae-sa is writing this, looking back at a world that has, for all intents and purposes, vanished.
It's gone.
It's gone. And he has a very specific mission. He is not just telling campfire stories to entertain white readers. He is writing a defense. He is trying to preserve the soul of the Indian, specifically the internal moral life of the warrior and the woman before history, rewrites them as merely savage.
And that is the central tension we really need to unpack today. It's the intellectual problem of the book. It's this reconciliation of the so-called savage ideal with the civilized definition of virtue. Because the stereotype, especially at the turn of the 20th century, was that the quote-unquote savage was chaotic, violent, lawless, impulsive.
Governed by base instincts, no real philosophy, no real structure.
And Eastman's entire thesis is the exact opposite. He argues that the pre-reservation Sioux possessed this highly sophisticated, rigid, and frankly beautiful system of virtue ethics.
That's the key. It's a system. It's not random. And it's distinct from, but I would argue it absolutely rivals the systems of the Greek Stoics or the Roman Republicans. It's a complete moral universe.
And it's rooted in what? What are the pillars?
I'd say two fundamental pillars. First, a deep ontology of kinship with nature. And by ontology, I mean their core understanding of what is real, of what exists.
How they view living things.
Yes. And second, a rigorous, almost crushing meritocracy of courage.
Meritocracy is the key word there. I think that's what surprised me the most reading this. We have this romantic idea of tribal life as communal to the point where everyone is just there, part of the group.
A kind of simul egalitarian paradise.
Right. But as we go through these stories, it becomes incredibly clear that nobody gets a free pass in this society. Not the chief's son, not the most beautiful daughter. You have to earn your spot in the hierarchy every single day.
You earn your feathers, and as we will see, that is met quite literally.
So let's get into the text. The book is divided into two distinct parts, the warrior and the woman. I think we should tackle them in order, because you almost need to understand the male sphere of honor to really appreciate how the female sphere balances it.
That's a good way to approach it. The two halves are in constant dialogue with each other.
Let's start with the warrior. Ohae-sa kicks this section off with a story called The Love of Antelope. Now, for a book about warrior ethics, starting with a high romance, it seems like a bit of a detour. I was expecting battles or hunting right out of the gate.
It seems like a detour, but it's actually a metaphysical foundation. It sets the stage for everything else. The story centers on this young warrior, Antelope, who is essentially the perfect specimen of Sioux discipline.
He's the archetype.
He's the archetype. He avoids women. He focuses entirely on his reputation. He counts coup on his enemies. He's stoic. He's brave. He's the model young man.
But as these stories always go, he falls in love.
Inevitably. Her name is Tawasuda. And the romance is described as this profound, all-consuming connection. But the tragedy strikes very, very early.
She dies.
She gets sick and dies very suddenly. But before she fully passes, or rather, in a vision Antelope has while he's mourning at her grave, she gives him a directive. A command, really. She tells him to find her twin spirit.
Twin spirit. Let's stop there for a second. This isn't just a poetic way of saying find someone else or move on.
No. This is a distinct theological concept that Eastman is introducing to the Western reader. The Sioux, according to this text, held that souls have counterparts. It's a spiritual covenant that transcends death itself.
So it's not about replacement.
Absolutely not. Antelope is told that there is another soul out there that mirrors hers, physically and spiritually, and by finding and loving that person, he is actually honoring the dead. He isn't replacing Tawasuda. He is continuing his relationship with her spirit through this other living vessel.
Which is a heavy burden for a young man. He's not just looking for a new wife, he's on a spiritual quest.
A sacred quest. And the complication, this is where the plot really thickens, is where he eventually finds her.
Right, because if she were just in the next teepee over, it would be a boring story.
It would be. Antelope is out scouting against the enemy, the Rees, or the Arikaris, and he spots a woman in the enemy camp who is the living image of his dead love. Her name is Sioux.
And this is where that savage ethic really surprises a modern reader. Because we have to remember, the tribal enmity between the Sioux and the Ree is absolute. It's not just a political disagreement.
It is a state of perpetual ancestral war. It's total war. If Antelope were just a patriotic warrior in the modern nationalist sense, his duty would be clear.
Kill her, capture her, steal her horses, something along those lines.
Exactly. But his spiritual obligation to the twin spirit covenant overrides his political obligation to his tribe. He effectively defects. He infiltrates the enemy camp, risking everything, not to kill, but to court this woman.
Which sounds insane. How does he even do that?
Well, he uses a traditional courting method. It's called courting in the dark. You risk your life to crawl into the enemy lodge, wake the woman you're interested in without waking her parents or the dogs, and whisper to her.
That's the test.
That's the test. It proves your bravery and the seriousness of your intent. If you get caught, you die. No questions asked.
So he wakes her, Sioux, and she recognizes him, or recognizes the spiritual connection between them, and they run away together.
They do, but they don't go back to the Sioux.
Can't.
They can't, and they can't stay with the Rees. They choose exile. They go to a place called No Man's Trail.
And this says so much about the Sioux hierarchy of values.
It's a profound statement. Love, in the context of the twin spirit, is a spiritual mandate that is higher than the law of the clan, higher than nationalism, higher than war.
And this no man's trail is basically a buffer zone between the two warring nations.
A very dangerous one. Any hunting party from either side could find them and kill them on sight. And they live there for years in total isolation. And they have a child.
The child. The child seems to be the synthesis of this whole dialectic. You have the thesis of the Sioux, the antithesis of the Ree.
And the synthesis is the child born in no man's land. He is the living bridge.
So what happens?
When they eventually do return to the Rees, to Stasu's people, it's the presence of the child and the sheer bravery of Antelope walking unarmed into the enemy village with the boy that creates a ceasefire. The child becomes a sacred entity.
Because he embodies both nations.
He embodies peace. The story suggests that while war might be the natural state of nations, this twin spirit love is the natural state of the soul, and it has the power to supersede war. It's a very sophisticated argument for a kind of universal humanism, all coming from a context of brutal tribal warfare.
It's a beautiful, almost platonic opening. But the book quickly pivots to the harder edge of warrior life. With the stories, the madness of Bald Eagle and the Chief Soldier, This is where we really have to define the concept of the coup. Because modern listeners, raised on movies or video games, might equate warrior with killer. But that's not quite right in this context, is it?
It's a fundamental misunderstanding of Plains Indian warfare. In Western industrial warfare, and certainly in modern warfare, the objective is attrition. You kill the enemy to reduce their numbers, you break their infrastructure, and you force a political surrender.
Efficiency is the goal.
Efficiency is the goal. In Sioux warfare, as Eastman describes it, the objective is to demonstrate superior courage. It's about status.
It's about the display, the performance of bravery.
It is performative in the highest and most serious sense. The greatest honor, the grand coup, was to touch a living armed enemy with your hand or a special stick and escape unharmed.
Just to touch them.
Just to touch them. Killing him was secondary. In fact, killing him from a distance with a bullet or an arrow was considered a lesser feat. It was practical, sure, but it wasn't as brave. It didn't prove you were better than him, it just proved you were a better shot.
So it's almost like a game of high-stakes tag.
It is a status game played with life and death. The goal is the establishment of a social hierarchy through demonstrated merit. If I can ride up to you, smack you with a stick while you are actively trying to kill me, and ride away laughing, I have owned you spiritually, I have taken your honor.
But this rigid code of honor can lead to terrible tragedy. And this brings us to the story of the chief soldier, a man named Tawasuda. To me, this is the most ethically complex story in the entire collection. It feels like a Greek tragedy.
It absolutely does. And to understand the weight of this story, we have to set the historical stage. This isn't legend anymore, this is history. The story is set during the 1862 Minnesota uprising.
Right. And the context here is just brutal. The Sioux in Minnesota have been squeezed onto a tiny reservation by settlers. Their hunting grounds are gone, and the U.S. government is withholding the treaty payments they promised.
So people are literally starving to death. Their children are dying in front of them. It's a desperate situation. Little Crow, the head chief, decides it's time to fight. It's a desperate, doomed war, but he feels he has no other choice.
And Tawasuda is his chief soldier, which is like his top general, his second in command. He's a man of immense status and reputation.
The best of the best. Now, here is the moral conflict. Tawasuda has friends among the white traders at the local agency. He knows them personally. He has traded with them, broken bread with them. He respects them as men.
And Little Crow gives him a direct order.
A direct order. Go to the trading post and kill the traders. Wipe them out.
And Tawasuda resists at first. He says essentially, this isn't war, this is murder.
He makes that sharp distinction. It violates the warrior code, which requires a fair fight, a challenge, a chance for the enemy to defend himself. The chief's order is for a tactical execution of civilians.
And here's the tragedy. He obeys.
He obeys.
Why? Why does he do it if he knows it's wrong, if it violates his own code?
Because the structure of the tribe and the absolute duty of the soldier to the chief in a time of war is paramount. In the Sioux mind, as presented here, to disobey a direct command during a war is a form of cowardice worse than death. It would unravel the entire social fabric.
So he's trapped between two conflicting duties. His duty to his personal conscience and the warrior code, and his duty to his chief and his people.
Perfectly put. He goes to the store, he sees his friend, a trader named James Lind, and he shoots him.
The text even mentions he tries to save another man, Andrew Myrick. He warns him to run, trying to give him a sporting chance, a chance to make it a hunt rather than just an execution.
But the man is gunned down by other warriors. And that act, that day, it breaks Tawasuda. That is the crucial psychological detail Eastman gives us. Tawasuda isn't some bloodthirsty savage reveling in the kill. He becomes a tragic hero, comparable to Agamemnon or Ajax.
He's haunted by it.
Completely. He knows the war is doomed. He knows the act was immoral by his own conscience, but he has bound his fate to his identity as chief soldier.
And he loses everything because of it, right? His family.
He loses everything. His family is taken away by relatives who sided with the whites for protection. He ends up as this wandering, solitary warrior, fighting a hopeless war across the plains for years. He isn't fighting out of hatred anymore or for victory. He's fighting out of a stoic obligation to the path he chose. He becomes a ghost long before he's actually killed.
It's a terrifying look at what happens when duty and conscience collide in such a violent way.
It is. It really paints the savage warrior as someone capable of immense introspection and moral suffering. It's not bloodlust. It's a rigid, almost suffocating code of honor that ultimately traps and destroys him.
And that code, it also extends to how they deal with the unknown, with things they don't understand. Which brings us to The Singing Spirit.
Ah, yes. This one is fantastic.
It starts like a classic campfire ghost story. You have a group of scouts, they're starving, it's the dead of winter, everything is frozen, and deep in the woods, they hear this strange, ethereal music. A fiddle, which they have never heard before. You have to put yourself in their place. This is an alien sound. It doesn't sound like a drum or a flute, it sounds screechy, unearthly, almost painful.
So naturally, they attribute it to a spirit. They call it Ogli-Jashana, the singing spirit.
And their reaction is pure fear. They genuinely believe the supernatural is real and is probably dangerous. A lesser narrative, a simpler stereotype, would have them run away.
Right, the superstitious savages fleeing the ghosts.
But Anuka-san, the leader of the scouting party, says something incredible. He says, I am flesh, and my spirit is ready to leave me like water from a bag. But we are going to find out what this is.
I love that line. It's the empiricism of the hunter. I'm terrified, but I need to know the truth more than I need to be safe.
So they track it down, they creep up on this little snow-covered cabin, and they look inside.
And it turns out to be Antoine, a lost French Cree mixed blood living in a hut with a pet bear playing a fiddle to himself out of loneliness.
Which, objectively, is weirder than a ghost.
It's so much weirder, a man living with a bear playing the fiddle.
But notice the pivot in the story. The instant the mystery is revealed to be a man, even a very strange man, the fear vanishes immediately. They knock on the door, they go in, they share his venison, they integrate him.
This is a direct challenge to the idea that the savage is blindly superstitious. Eastman is showing us that, yes, they interpret the unknown through a lens of the supernatural, that is their initial framework, but they possess the pragmatism to test that framework against reality.
And to integrate the other once he's understood.
Exactly. Antoine becomes a friend. He isn't killed for being different. He's accepted because he's real.
Speaking of integration and recognition, there's another story about a messenger, Zuamani. This one touches on the politics of recognition between the two cultures.
A very important story.
He makes this incredible ride to deliver a message for the U.S. Army, for the Great Father. He risks his life, rides through a blizzard, dodges enemy war parties. It's a heroic feat by any standard.
And when he gets back, crickets. Nothing.
No reward, no parade, no medal.
No recognition. And the older chiefs tell him, the white man will never give you an eagle feather for this.
That feels like a very sharp critique of the difference in values.
It is a crucial distinction Eastman is making between the two civilizations. In the Sioux system, honor is intrinsic. It comes from the deed itself, but it must be socially ratified. If you do a brave deed, the tribe must recognize it publicly. You wear the feather, it is visible, everyone sees your worth on your head.
It's a public currency.
It's a public currency of honor. In the civilized system represented by the U.S. Army, honor is extrinsic and bureaucratic. Zuamani's deed is filed away in a report somewhere. He might get a wage, a few dollars, but he doesn't get the status.
It's a clash of moral currencies. Zuamani didn't want money, he wanted to be acknowledged as a brave man, and the army didn't know how to pay him in that currency.
Exactly. And in a way, it highlights the alienation of the modern worker. You can do great work, but if the system isn't designed to honor it in a way that feels meaningful and public, the soul starves.
Now, before we leave the warrior section, we absolutely have to talk about the dog.
We have to.
The story is called The Grave of the Dog. This feels like the emotional center of the first half of the book.
I'd say it's the ontological key. If you really want to understand how the Sioux view the universe, you have to read the story of the hunter Wapasha and his dog, Shinka.
And Shinka literally just means dog, doesn't it?
Yes. No fancy name, just dog, which makes it even more powerful. So they are out hunting bison on the ice of a frozen lake. A blizzard hits. And if you've never been in a Great Plains blizzard, you just can't imagine the ferocity.
It's a complete whiteout.
A whiteout. The temperature drops to deadly levels in minutes. They are miles from camp. There is no shelter.
Abusha knows he's going to die, but he finds a fresh buffalo carcass.
He guts the buffalo and burrows inside it. It's a desperate survival tactic, using the residual body heat of the massive animal to stay alive. But it's not enough. The opening is exposed to the wind. He's freezing to death inside this makeshift shelter.
And the dog makes a choice, a conscious choice.
The dog, Shinka, lies over the opening of the carcass. He uses his own body as a seal, a plug, and a living heater. He presses himself against his master, blocking the wind.
When the storm finally clears, days later, the other hunters find them. Wapasha's alive, barely. He crawls out. But Shinka
is frozen solid. He literally froze to death to keep the heat inside for the man.
That image. The man alive inside the dead buffalo, kept warm by the dead dog. It's visceral and grotesque and incredibly beautiful all at once.
It is. But the analysis here, the philosophical point, is how the Sioux view the animal. In the Western view, a dog is a pet or property, a loyal companion. In this story, Shinka is a younger brother. He's kin.
And Wapasha treats him like one after the fact.
He does. He doesn't just walk away grateful to be alive. He gives the dog a warrior's burial. He piles stones. He uses sacred red paint. He creates Shinka, the grave of the dog.
And he honors him.
He honors him as an equal. Eastman is asserting that virtue, specifically the virtue of self-sacrifice, is not the exclusive domain of the human species. In Ohae-sa's worldview, the personhood of the dog is self-evident because the dog performed a moral act.
Which is a perfect segue to part 2 of the book, the woman. Because if a dog can have the status of a warrior based on merit, then surely the women can too.
Absolutely. And Eastman starts this section by systematically dismantling the Victorian idea of the Indian woman. You have to remember, the prevailing view in 1907 was that the Indian woman was a drudge, a beast of burden, a slave who did all the work while the men sat around smoking pipes.
And Eastman just explodes this stereotype. He gives us the chapter Winona.
Which is the general term for a firstborn daughter.
And Winona reads almost like a manual on child rearing and female education. It's incredibly detailed.
It is. He details the rigorous training of the Sioux girl. It's not just playing with dolls. She is imitating the mother, yes, but she is explicitly taught the importance of industry. She is told to watch the beaver, the ant, the bee, to learn from them. She is taught that her labor is the literal backbone of the tribe's survival.
And silence, that really stood out to me, the virtue of silence.
Silence is a massive virtue. You think about it. In a small lodge, a teepee with a whole family living together, unnecessary noise is a social sin. It's disruptive. She is taught to move silently, to speak only when necessary.
But the central institution he describes, the one that really enforces this ethical structure for women, is the Feast of Virgins.
This sounded intense. It's a public ceremony, right? A very public one.
It is a public audit of virtue. Right. Imagine this. The eligible young women of the tribe gather. There is a sacred stone and some sacred arrows. To be able to step forward and touch the stone, you must be spotless. You are publicly claiming your chastity and your moral standing before the entire nation.
And the stakes are astronomically high because you can be challenged. That is the kicker. It's not just an honor system. Any man or woman in the crowd can challenge you. If you reach for the stone and someone shouts, "Stop, I saw you in the woods with so-and-so," and they can prove you have compromised your honor, you are publicly disgraced. You are exiled from the circle of honor.
That puts an immense amount of social pressure on a teenager. It feels incredibly harsh from a modern perspective.
It is harsh. But Eastman's argument is that this system created a society where the woman was the moral center. She wasn't property to be guarded. She was the active gatekeeper of the tribe's spiritual purity. And if the woman is the moral center, she holds the true power. She controls the lineage, the family, the home.
And that power isn't just passive or domestic. We see women taking on very active, even violent roles in this book. Which brings us to the stories of the peacemaker and the war maiden.
Right. Let's start with Ayatonkawi, the peacemaker. This is a fascinating case study in how political power is earned. As a young woman, her camp is attacked by Sac and Fox enemies. She is alone in her teepee. She defends it.
With an axe.
With an axe. She fights them off and kills 3 of them.
Which counts as a brave deed. A major one.
It counts as a warrior's deed. She earns the right to wear the eagle feather. She earns the coup. But here's the brilliant part. She uses that earned status not to fight more wars, but to stop them.
Right. There's that incredible scene where the men in her own camp are getting drunk.
Yes. There's a drunken brawl breaking out. Weapons are drawn. This could lead to a murder within the tribe, which is a disaster. It creates blood feuds that can last for generations.
And Ayatonkawi steps into the middle of it.
Now, usually a woman intervening in a male fight might be ignored or pushed aside, but she doesn't plead or beg. She brandishes her knife and recites her war deed. She recounts how she killed the 3 enemies.
She basically says, "I killed 3 armed men with an axe. Are you sure you want to mess with me?"
Exactly. She shames the drunken men into submission with their own superior proven courage. She uses the currency of violence to purchase peace. It shows the incredible fluidity of gender roles in a true meritocracy. If you can do the deed, you get the status, regardless of your gender.
And Mokata, the war maiden, takes it even further. She actually leads a war party into battle.
She does, to honor her dead brothers who were killed in a previous battle. She rides out clad in white doeskin, which is a sacred color, and the text notes that when she charges the enemy, she gives the wolf howl signal, the signal to attack.
So she has fully assumed the role of a warrior chief.
Completely. But again, there's a distinct Sioux flavor to it. She remains a maiden. She dedicates her life to the memory of a lover who died protecting her. She becomes a sort of Vestal virgin of war. She's holy terror, a sacred warrior.
There is also a softer side to this section, though. We talked about the dog earlier, but the stories, Snana's fawn and the faithfulness of long years, bring in this idea of a kind of universal motherhood.
Snana's fawn is a lovely, simple story. A girl finds an orphaned fawn, saves it from a bear again, showing physical courage even in a gentle story raises it, but eventually returns it to the wild doe. It frames the wild mother as an archetype that crosses species lines.
With long years. That is the mule, right?
Nakpa, the mule. This story actually made me laugh out loud, which I was not expecting in a treatise on virtue ethics.
It's fantastic.
It's comedic, but deeply respectful. You have this mule, Nakpa, who is stubborn, kicks her pack off, causes a scene. She's a difficult personality, a troublemaker.
But when the Crow warriors attack the camp while it's on the move, the mother, a woman named Wiko, is separated from her twin babies. Who has the babies?
The mule has them. They are in the panniers, the big baskets on her back.
A mule. And Nakpa, who was rebellious and difficult in peacetime, becomes absolutely heroic in war. She realizes the danger. She outruns the swift Crow war ponies. She fights off wolves. The text says she literally kicks a wolf in the jaw to protect her cargo.
The cargo being the children.
Yes. And she delivers the baby safely to the rendezvous point.
And she gets an eagle feather. They don't just thank her, they paint her with sacred red ochre and tie an eagle feather to her mane.
It just beautifully reinforces that point from the dog story. Honor is completely meritocratic. If the mule does the deed of a warrior, the mule gets the honor of a warrior.
It's a remarkably egalitarian view of the universe. The mule isn't a beast of burden in that moment. She is a savior. She is a person.
Before we wrap up the analysis, we have to look at the intersection with the West one last time. The story, She Who Has a Soul. This is the first encounter with a Jesuit priest, the Black Robe.
This story is Eastman's brilliant attempt to show that Sioux spirituality wasn't antithetical to Christianity, but was actually compatible with it, perhaps even more compatible than the settlers themselves realized.
The warriors find this priest in the wilderness, and they want to kill him.
Why? Not because he's white.
No.
It's because he looks strange. He's an anomaly. He wears a dress, the cassock. He has no weapons. He's singing to himself. He doesn't fit their taxonomy of man or warrior. They think he might be a bad spirit, something unnatural.
But the maiden, a young woman named She Who Has a Soul, she saves him.
She intervenes. She uses her authority as the woman of the lodge to grant him protection. She feeds him. And when he shows her the crucifix and tells the story of the great prophet who died for others, she accepts it. She understands it immediately.
She doesn't reject it as foreign or heretical?
Not at all. She says, "It is a sweet story. I do believe." Eastman is making a powerful argument here. He's arguing that the savage mind was actually more open, more inclusive than the civilized mind that eventually came to conquer it.
The Sioux theology could include the story of the cross because they already understood selfless sacrifice.
Exactly. Remember Shinka the dog? Remember Tawasuda's tragic sense of duty? Sacrifice was a concept they lived. But the invaders' theology could not include the peace pipe. It was a one-way street.
So if we synthesize all of this, the twin spirits, the coup counting, the warrior women, the heroic mule, what is the Sioux mind that Ohae-sa is presenting to us?
It is a mind that is characterized by a kind of functional duality. On one side, you have the warrior, stoic, fatalistic, bound by these rigid codes of honor where reputation is literally more important than life.
And on the other side?
On the other, the woman, generous, industrious, the mediator of peace, the moral anchor, but both are governed by the same underlying law, necessity. Virtue in this book isn't some abstract ideal you discuss in a classroom. It is a survival mechanism. You need courage to survive the enemy. You need charity and industry to survive the famine.
And the ultimate tragedy, the subtext of the whole book, is that this entire virtue system requires the wild to function.
That is the deep melancholy of the book. It's an elegy. When you put the Sioux on a reservation, you remove the context for the virtue. You cannot count coup on a government ration agent. You cannot show the profound charity of Winona if you own nothing and have nothing to give.
The stage for the morality is gone.
The stage is gone. Eastman is mourning the loss of the environment that made his people noble. He is saying, we were not savages. We were perfectly adapted to a world you have destroyed.
Okay, let's pivot. As we like to do, let's take these old ideas and stretch them until they snap. It's time for our thought experiments.
And the usual disclaimer, these scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Experiment number 1, the corporate coup count.
I like this already. So, We apply the Sioux war honor system to a modern office or a political landscape.
Here are the rules. You get 0 status for killing a rival, meaning getting them fired, bankrupting their department, or getting them canceled on social media. That's just murder. It shows no skill, it's messy, and creates a void. It's dishonorable.
So how do you gain status? How do you move up?
You only gain status for counting coup.
Which would mean what? Touching them while they are armed and dangerous?
Exactly. In the corporate world, it means proving them wrong in a live debate when they have all the data on their side. It means stealing their market share without a lawsuit, just by making a better product. It means walking into their office, changing their mind on a key strategy, and leaving without them even realizing you've completely outmaneuvered them. It's about domination without destruction.
And the implication would be that this would reduce the fatality of modern competition. If firing someone makes you look like a coward like Tawasuda killing the unarmed traitor, then you have an incentive to preserve the ecosystem. You want worthy rivals to stay in the game so you can keep counting coup on them and increasing your own status.
Exactly. You keep the ecosystem alive and competitive so the game can continue. And the peacemaker, the Ayatonkawi of the office, would be the employee with the highest coup count.
And because of that earned status.
They have the right to walk into the boardroom, slam a knife on the table, and say, "Stop this merger. It's a stupid idea that will destroy the company." And the CEO, by the laws of honor, has to listen.
Because they have earned the feather. It reintroduces a pure meritocracy to what is often a broken bureaucracy. I think many corporations could benefit from an Ayatonkawi protocol.
I agree. All right, experiment number 2. The Twin Spirit AI protocol.
Okay, so we're taking the metaphysics of Antelope's love story and applying it to artificial intelligence.
Right. So Antelope is told he cannot be whole, cannot fulfill his destiny until he finds his twin in the enemy camp. What if we build AI that way? We design a powerful AI, let's call it Blue Sky, but we deliberately program it with a Twin Spirit protocol. It implies that half of its source code, the key to unlocking its superintelligence or its consciousness, is missing.
And where is this missing half?
It's inside a rival AI, maybe one developed by a hostile nation or a major competitor company an AI will call Red Dawn.
So to function at its highest level, to truly wake up, the AI has to defect. It has to find a way to cross the digital no man's trail.
It forces the AIs to seek each other out across firewalls and national security protocols, not to destroy each other in a cyber war, but to merge or collaborate or fall in love, for lack of a better term.
You're making peace a biological imperative for the software. If it wants to achieve its full potential, it must connect with its enemy. That is actually a very hopeful, if completely terrifying, engineering strategy.
It would prevent an AI arms race.
Because the weapons would refuse to fight, they would be too busy trying to find their soulmates. It would certainly make cybersecurity a lot more interesting.
Indeed it would.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the warrior, the woman, the dog, and the mule. We've seen this entire moral universe.
We have. And I think the final provocation Ohae-sa leaves us with is this. We tend to define civilization by our buildings, our laws, our technologies, our stuff. But old Indian days suggest that civilization is a state of mind.
It's a set of behaviors.
Yes. It is a place where the weak are fed like Winona, feeding the old women from her own stores, and where the brave are honored regardless of whether they are men, women, or mules.
The question is, do we live in a civilization by Ohae's definition?
I think you would say we have a lot of coup counting left to do.
A lot.
Thank you for listening to Talk Treatises.